From HanselMinutes.com, it's Hansel Minutes, a weekly discussion with web developer and technologist Scott Hanselman. This is Lawrence Ryan announcing show number 410, recorded live Thursday, February 6th, 2014. This episode of Hansel Minutes is brought to you by Telerik, offering the best in developer tools and support. Online at telerik.com. And by Franklins.net, makers of GesturePak, a powerful gesture recording and recognition system for Microsoft Connect for Windows developers. Details at gesturepak.com. In this episode, Scott talks with Dave Voyles, who worked on the Comcast Xfinity application for Xbox.
Hi, this is Scott Hanselman. This is another episode of Hansel Minutes, and I'm talking with Dave Voyles. He used to work at Comcast on the Xbox apps, and now works, in fact, for Microsoft. You work for Microsoft on the East Coast, is that right?
Yes, that's correct. I'm located in Philadelphia.
It's probably pretty snowy there, I assume?
Yeah, I've been quite the tundra, the whole Northeast for the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, it's snowpocalypse here in Oregon. Everyone is homesick, and if it wasn't snowing, we'd be homesick. We're completely snowed in, and there's really no way to get anywhere. Because I think there's an inch of snow.
Yeah, it sounds just like my household then.
Yeah, an inch of snow has crippled Portland. So we're playing on the Xbox today. I got an Xbox One. I do have an Xbox 360, but I bought an Xbox One. I bit the bullet on this thing. And now I have a DirecTV. And you worked for Comcast, and I also see other kind of discussion around TV apps and stuff like that.
Yes.
What's the default experience that a person who wants to watch TV get on an Xbox? I just plug in the HDMI.
Yes.
And you tell it,
Right. Then you'd have HDMI pass through from whichever cable box you're currently using into your Xbox One. And then from there, your Xbox can detect which device you're using, and it can then display a guide based on the content available in your area.
Yeah. And I've had it's kind of a weird experience if you're used to using your DVR, because you basically have to decide which guide you want.
Yes,
right?
Correct. It'll look differently, from your native guide.
Right. So if I hit guide on my DirecTV, I get this DirecTV menu. And if I hit guide on the Xbox, I get an Xbox menu. But you helped work on the Comcast app. Now, would that be an app that would make my Xbox a DVR, or what is that app? Like, what does an app from a TV provider provide to the Xbox?
Well, the largest feature that we're adding for that app is very similar to the Xbox 360 app that we had as well, titled Xfinity. And that basically gave you access to the video on demand catalog. So you'd log in one time with your gamer tag, which is then linked to your Comcast account. And I'm sure that other platforms handle this very similarly. And then from there, we're just passing a token back and forth between your device and Comcast that says, I'm David Voyles, and I have access to HBO, Stars, or whatever networks you prefer. And this way it opens up that content to you. So if you want to watch a movie or a television show that was on previously, you have access to all of that.
So it's like Netflix or Amazon or any of the on-demand systems, but it's specific to that company. So it's the Comcast on-demand experience.
Yes, exactly. So I don't think any of these apps cost any additional money. It's really just more added value onto what you already have for your cable program.
Mm-hmm. So then if you had like a set-top box, you may or may not have on-demand experiences. This could augment it. Like by having an Xbox, you'd be like, oh, look, I have Comcast, I have on-demand. Suddenly I have more than I had before. That's
right. Yeah, so there are really two benefits to having it. The first is the movies or titles that are going to be available to you, because content providers look at cable boxes as one form of media, and they look at digital devices such as your Xbox as a different form of content. So some movies may only be available on one or the other. So that's one large reason why we do that.
Yeah. It's been interesting to watch the Xbox and boxes like it try to take over the living room, because I think we, the consumer, expects that one day a Comcast or a DirecTV is going to show up and no longer have a cable box. Like there would no longer be a Comcast box or a Motorola generic silver box. They would just hand me an Xbox and say, here you go. This is now your cable box.
Yeah. It's funny because you think that they would be competitors in the same market, and that, Xbox has its own movie and video streaming service, and so does Comcast. So it's funny to see them kind of go back and forth. But I think we're very far from having a cable box-less future.
Yeah, there's always going to be some kind of box, I'm afraid. Now, I assume you have an Xbox One.
Yes, I do.
Yeah. Do you have Comcast?
Yes, I do.
Okay. So one of the things that I think is the most amazing about the Xbox One that I've been really impressed with is this idea of HDMI pass-through.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I remember early attempts at HDMI pass-through just being kind of lame.
Right.
And what they would do is they would like put a big pink square up on the screen, and then they would detect where the pink square was.
Yep.
And then they would overlay. No, not the
Content onto
Xbox,
that.
but this is like people who did this, like the Hauppauge card and things
Yeah,
like that. They would
yeah.
overlay the content over that. And then if you move the window fast enough, you could see the pink.
Yeah, and really what that was is the handshake that goes back and forth between devices to make sure that you have DRM going between the two of them. So it's largely the content providers that require that.
Yeah, but on the Xbox One, it is absolutely
Seamless.
seamless.
Yep.
It's perfect.
Yeah.
And it's getting to the point now where the frame rate on the on-demand stuff, like the stuff you see from Comcast, is so high, it's so good quality that you really can't tell whether you're watching on-demand or whether you're watching live HDMI pass-through.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, even at my home, we have our Comcast cable box plugged directly into Xbox. And largely that's because we hit one button on the Xbox and it turns on my receiver, my television, and my cable box.
Right. Which is really weird for people to like see for the first time because it's sending IR.
Yep.
Again, I don't know anything more than anyone else. So even though I work for Microsoft, for the listeners, I work in the Azure group. So I literally only know about what I learn on like The Verge. So from an Xbox perspective, I have no inside information of any kind. I know what I can see by observing it. So I plugged it in and it comes with the Kinect and the Kinect sits right there. And I noticed, that the Kinect is sending out IR. Like the Kinect is not just sending out IR to detect whether or not I'm there.
Yes.
But it's sending out the codes.
And you know,
it's the IR blaster.
I think, but I really have like nothing to back this up. I think that the gamepad may do the same as well. And the only reason I have that hunch is because, my Kinect sits above my television and all of my media devices are beneath my TV in a small closet, or not a closet. They're not exposed to the Xbox, we'll say. Mm-hmm. So when I do sit in front of the TV, I have my remote in hand, my gamepad, and it's pointing back at my devices. So I'm thinking, but I really have nothing to back this up, that it also shoots out IR.
I know that it has IR on it.
Right.
And I know that it has two and they're kind of offset and you can see them. And one of the things that you can do is if you have an old style, video recorder, like a Super 8 or any kind of VHS, point the camera at the IR emitter and you will actually be able to see the infrared light.
Yep.
This is how you can detect that kind of stuff. So the question is that you and I are kind of proposing is it blasting out the IR code to like turn on the TV or change channels from both the Kinect and the remote and the controller, or is the controller IR used for something else? I know that they use the controller IR to pair the two. So in the old days, you had to like push a button here and push a button there, and then it would go and like RF and go and then try to detect. Now it can see it. Because this IR.
And the fact they're able to do this so seamlessly kind of blew me away as well, because I'd previously worked in the audiovisual industry in Manhattan, and Logitech had a number of great devices, but it was a lot of programming work on the back end for someone to figure out how all of these devices are paired together and the unique codes for each one of them.
Yeah, it was really seamless. You turn it on and you say, I have a Samsung, and then it says, did the TV just turn off? And you're like, yeah. And like, all right, we know which one it is.
Yep,
like,
it knows.
Really? In the old days, you had to get a book and you had to like, type in a code at the back. It was a whole thing. So yeah, it turns on my TV, the Xbox, the Onkyo, like all the different diverse devices. It turns them on. And it's an instant on mode. So I just say Xbox on and then it turns everything on automatically, which is great. So I just walk in and say Xbox on. And then I hooked up my Logitech Harmony remote control.
Okay. Yeah, I still use one of those as well.
Fantastic. And I taught it all about the Xbox. That has actually been the only, if there's one bad thing, the only difficult thing is the wife doesn't know when the up-down arrows control the DirecTV or when they control the Xbox.
Yeah, we have the same issue in my house too. Bit of a learning curve on that end. But that's
a bit of a first world problem as well.
Right. I mean, that's just the situation you have when you have so many electronic devices in one room.
Mm-hmm. Now, from what I read online, the Xbox is running some flavor of Windows. It clearly looks and feels like Windows. And if you've got a Windows Phone or a Windows 8 machine, the dashboard feels very comfortable. And I know on Windows, I can write applications in HTML and JavaScript. Can I do the same thing? Can I write a JavaScript HTML, HTML5 application on an Xbox?
Yes. So in September, Microsoft had revealed that you can use HTML5 for apps. I haven't heard any word about games, but apps for your Xbox One. So specifically, that's what we used for the Xfinity app at Comcast.
It's really smooth. Like, I know that people, when they think of an HTML5 app, they think of, oh, well, they're just going to put Internet Explorer full screen and then lie to me.
Yeah, no, that's not the case at all.
It's not the same. It's not the same, is it?
No, not at all. I mean, when I was writing work there, it had nothing to do with Internet Explorer. Essentially what Microsoft is doing is exposing, this is the same on Windows 8, they're exposing many, if not all, of the Windows 8 APIs just via JavaScript. And this is making the transition easier for web developers to then come over instead of having to write native code everywhere. Mm-hmm.
So when you were writing the Comcast app, I assume you're bringing in libraries that are Xbox One specific JavaScript libraries, and then that's how you then call them, or are you saying document dot something and then accessing the Xbox?
Yes, exactly. So everything that's available through whatever native libraries, whether it's C++ or C# you may use on Windows 8, those same things or APIs are available to JavaScript developers.
So how does that work? You're looking at the Xbox One documentation that you've got available to you as an Xbox One developer, and you see some API, and maybe you find some sample code in C++.
Yes.
Do you say, oh, I can call that?
Yeah.
You can just call anything?
They essentially have an equivalent. They have, basically, if you're writing on a Windows 8, you'd have win.js, and Xbox has the same version. I don't want to go into too many details about that, but yeah, whatever you have for JavaScript available on Windows 8, you have on Xbox One.
Okay, so conceptually, the layering idea of WinJS as a way to expose native APIs to JavaScript are there.
Yep, so that's why I suggest for anyone who has even a hunch for wanting to make something for Xbox One, write it for Windows 8. That is the best place to get started, without a doubt.
Seriously?
Yeah, absolutely.
So if you are thinking that when I'm not sure what the status of Xbox One apps, like if any indie apps can be made.
Yeah, I don't know either.
I don't know. I assume that we'll hear about that. There's something coming up soon. But my question is, you're saying if I want to write an app for Xbox One, I don't have to wait. I can write a WinJS app on Windows 8 as kind of practice and be able to use much of that code on the Xbox.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And that same goes for games too.
So when you wrote the Comcast app, were you guys laying this out in CSS and HTML and
yeah. So basically,
like
Microsoft,
the layout of the structure of the windows?
Yes, everything was done in HTML for the markup, CSS for the styling, and JavaScript for animations and a lot of the back-end work. So again, before I had a dev kit, I did all of this in Windows 8, got an idea for what I'd be looking for. They even provided us with a Windows 8 version to get up and running. And if you can read HTML and you know JavaScript and anything about Windows 8, it's seamless to go over from one project to the other.
How different were they? I mean, is it just straight WinJS, or did you have to like abstract away some Xbox One specific things, like for example the controller for navigation and things like that?
I mean, Microsoft handled all of that for us. I didn't have to do any of the controller work, especially on Windows 8. But I can't get into too many details. But what I can say is that going from doing the Xbox 360 work to then going to Xbox One, it was far, far easier. The projects were much more organized. And as a web developer, it was very well documented and very, very easy to make that transition.
Cool. Yeah, I was trying to get a sense of like, I know when you are looking at tiles or lists of tiles on Windows, you can select them with the mouse, you can touch them, or you can move around with the keyboard.
Right.
So I'm presuming that it's similar to move around with the D-pad on the controller on an Xbox. So
Absolutely.
The idea of like selection and the selection rectangle, it's just handled for you on the Xbox?
That's correct.
Okay, so you don't have to worry about like, oh, we'll do this with the controller.
That is all abstracted away from me.
A built-in piece of input.
Yep. So I was basically writing as simple of an app as I possibly could because fortunately the Xbox libraries handled all that difficult work.
Nice.
Yeah, like the back-end things, the Kinect, the gamepad. They handled all of that. So it made my job extremely easy.
So it's not low level. It's not like a for loop and you're going in grabbing input. It's just you're writing click handlers effectively, and that's all you need to worry about.
That was it. I would hook up click handlers. I would grab a JSON object from our back end, and it may be something as simple as a list of movies. Maybe it's 100 children's titles. I loop through them as an array, and I can pull out whatever information I want, whether it's a picture, a list of the cast, or a description.
And if you want to make it so you can select the items with Connect,
Yes.
is that built in as well? That's just another selection API.
It is. In fact, they have the Connect 2. I was skeptical at first, but when I finally used it for myself, all my fears were assuaged because of how well it worked and how precise it was. So we spent quite a bit of time playing with it and getting used to it. And it is available if you'd like to add more features yourself. But again, Microsoft handles all that for us. So if I didn't want to touch it at all, it's not a problem.
Yeah, it's definitely, I would recommend if people who do have an Xbox One to go through the gesture tutorial, whatever tutorials the system gives you and it prompts you for like, hey, you want to learn about this? Because the Connect is different. Like an Xbox 360, you hold your hand there.
Yes.
And you wait for it to spin. And on the Xbox One, you kind of like push in.
Right. It's more of like an intuitive and natural motion.
Yeah, it is. And then you can scroll by kind of moving forward, grabbing, and then moving over and then opening. So it seems to see your fingers more than the other Connect.
Yeah, we were all very surprised, and it worked very, very well. And again, like we don't have to make any changes to it, but if you're going to really make something that's going to be innovative or stand out for users and make their experience better, you really are encouraged to do that. And they make it easier this time around.
Would that be like a pinch to zoom or a move? What kind of gestures might you think you would want to add to make your app stand out?
Even if it's not something like gestures, it may be something like auditory cues that you may call out.
Oh, so I totally forgot about that.
Yeah, so you may call ask for a movie by title or by a cast member. So all that is open to you. And again, like the tools have improved exponentially over what we were using before.
Did you do that? Did you add voice support to?
I didn't have any time at that moment before I had left.
Okay, that's cool. Now, was the app done when you left, or were they still working on it?
They still have a little bit to go, but I mean, to give you an idea of how simple this process was, I was the only person working on this, so it wasn't like we had a team of people. I mean, I think Comcast has 90,000 employees, but I was the only person working on it. So that gives you an idea of how simple it is to get a project like that up and going. And a testament to how straightforward the project is.
So presumably then, if you are sitting on top of a rich API and you have great web services at Comcast, that would make your life easier. Like you couldn't be the only person if the data sources were not there available to you. Clearly.
Exactly. Someone's got to do the back end work, and they just had rich material for me to pull from, so it made it very easy. But again, if you're a web developer and you're used to using the web stuff at all, you'll have no problem going over.
Was it JSON or XML or SOAP or like what does a Comcast backend API look like? Like you said, get a list of 100 children's movies.
Yeah, so they have all kinds of different things. I mean, again, I'm basically a web developer, so for the most part, I would pull in JSON, and that just worked best for me personally. But again, like you can use anything you really want.
And these APIs, once you've authenticated, like I guess they have to figure out that you're a Comcast person, right? Like,
yes.
I don't have Comcast, so if I tried to log into this app, somehow they'd know I didn't really have Comcast?
Yes, that's correct. So you'd be presented with a user sign-in screen, and it'll ask for your Comcast credentials, which is generally a name followed by .comcast.net. And it would do a quick check to say, hey, this name doesn't exist, so you're not going to have access to the app. So it's as simple as that.
Okay. And then once they've logged in, they're in, and they're pretty much, it's just seamless. It's always
That's
there.
Right. So if you use the 360 app, which has been out for about a year and a half now, if you've used that, it would be the same experience, roughly, but with the new styling of the Xbox One.
Is this, the app that you wrote, is it a rewrite of the 360 app, or is it an evolution of the 360 app?
Absolutely an evolution.
Yeah.
So I try to do my best to merge what Comcast's current UI is while still running within the guidelines of Xbox One. So, often you'll hear UX folks talk about, is this a native app or is this an app that's geared for this specific platform, or is this an app that is branded with Comcast or your specific company? So I try to do my best to merge the two together, and I think it turned out pretty well.
Yeah, that's going to be a real challenge to try to keep the identity of the company that you're writing the app for. Like, you want it to look and feel like Comcast in the colors and the fonts and the styles and the general feel, because you want them to feel like they have arrived at a location. You know what I mean? Like, we are in the Comcast world right now, but at the same time, it should look like every other app.
Yeah, and sometimes you can have conflicts in that for a number of reasons. Microsoft may say, well, we have to reserve this space in particular. For example, if you ever use Connect, you'll see in the top right corner, all of your dialogue or gestures appear there. You'll see a little microphone pop up. So I couldn't populate that space with any content. Whereas the guidelines for a specific app or UI for your company may say, hey, you've got to fill us with something. So you kind of have to blend the best of both worlds and keep both parties satisfied.
Mm-hmm. So you go and you get your JSON, you fill your lists up with the movies and the pictures that you want, you let people scroll around, and you have different ways to search and sort and filter and do all that kind of stuff. When you want to play the movie then, is it just handled? I mean, you just give it a stream and a size of the window and it's done?
Yeah, well, so the Xbox will handle all the scaling and the size for you. I'm just pointing it towards a stream. And you could write your own video player if you wanted, but in this case, Microsoft already has one called Player Framework, which is open source, and it's available on all Microsoft platforms.
Oh.
Yeah, so they have smooth streaming, play-ready DRM, a number of other features added there as well. So that's what I started using. But anyone can look for it, and it's open for every device. It's done in C#, C++, and JavaScript.
Mm-hmm. Do you use Player Framework for that stuff then?
Yes, absolutely. No sense in reinventing the wheel, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, you've got the scrubber, which is the thing that lets you, seek around the timing forward and backward. I mean, it's pretty rote stuff, and presumably, if everyone uses the same framework, then everyone will have a good experience when they're playing the video.
Yeah, I mean, there still are some things that need to be added at some point. For example, a lot of people like to say, "Oh, the FCC doesn't do anything." Well, in fact, they do quite a bit, especially for the end user. For example, accessibility is a big concern for the FCC and Comcast in general. So put yourself in the shoes of someone who can't see or hear very well, but they still want to enjoy content with their family. So what the FCC has mandated is that in 2014, this year, we have to have audio or subtitles, I should say, that are customizable.
That was my next question.
Yes. I forgot what the actual name of that mandate is off the top of my head, but it slows down a few companies because you have to get it done. But once you get past those hurdles, it makes the experience more enjoyable for everybody.
Right.
So
these are presumably some kind of data transformation job. They need to make sure that they're producing those captions in the right format and then feed them into the Player Framework and they look right.
Absolutely. So you may be watching a movie that has a brightly lit background, but it may be difficult for a handicapped person to see or someone who's visually impaired. So they need the ability to increase the font size, to change the colors, or change the shading behind it. So those are some features that are still being added to Microsoft's Player Framework, but I think in the near future they will be far more enriched.
One of the other things that I wanted to ask you about is that you did a blog post on your site about SmartGlass.
Yes.
And like I said before, I work for the company, but I have iPhones and iPads, and I'm pretty much a mixed household. And I feel like SmartGlass is like one of these really amazing things that like no one knows about. Like people who read The Verge and Engadget and Gizmodo know about it.
Yeah.
But if you like talk to a random person who has an Xbox, they don't know what this is.
Yep.
And that's a shame because it's pretty freaking amazing.
Oh, I agree. Like you said, SmartGlass is incredible. It's just that's not really pushed that much at the moment, or many developers just haven't really got behind it. I think largely because they're just trying to get their apps out at the moment and better understand everything. But essentially, SmartGlass is a second screen experience that has added value or supplements what you're currently doing. So it's basically a container that you can download from the App Store for whichever device you're using. And it then contains and harnesses a website that you had built. Or I say website loosely. And that essentially all it's doing is pointing to a URL with, again, HTML, JavaScript, and CSS. So, for example, if I was going to turn on the Comcast Xfinity app, as soon as I launch that, and it notices that I have a second screen device like my mobile phone, and I also have SmartGlass installed on it, it'll start the Xfinity second screen experience on my phone as well.
And what is that? Do you have that? Does that exist?
Yes, I was working on that as well.
Okay, what does it do? What do I get on my phone or my tablet if I'm playing Xfinity?
It allowed you to, again, browse the video on demand catalog without interrupting the experience of what was currently on screen. So,
okay. So you're watching a movie and still going through the catalog.
That's right. So it adds features like basically I'd sit down with my family, watch a movie, and without interrupting their experience, I can pick different movies while still having a movie playing. But additionally, I had a little pull out for a remote. So you hit a button in the top left corner and you have all the buttons and functions that were available to your Xbox controller in addition to a little scrub bar that worked in real time, and an avatar. So it had your name and your avatar kind of dancing back and forth on the remote.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
The thing that my first experience to it that made me realize that I want to play this was the Dead Rising game. It's the zombie game. And I've got an iPad, and when I run the iPad SmartGlass app while Dead Rising is on, you get a map.
Right.
Oh my goodness. It completely changes the way that you think about what you're doing. Like, I'll put the map on my knee or my lap, and it gives you this kind of heads-up display. You know what I mean? It's like picture-in-picture. You can put it anywhere you want. And you could even have a second person sitting next to you, like playing along in the sense of they're on the map, they're looking at your inventory, they're moving around in the app, telling you stuff.
Updating quests, you'd get calls from NPCs and things like that.
Well, and that's what's so brilliant about the way that the Dead Rising folks did it, is that they added exclusive content that you wouldn't get unless you had SmartGlass.
Right.
So you get, it's awesome. They treat it like a phone. So you get cell phone calls from other characters in the game. Mm-hmm. Like, go help me, you know?
Yeah. And, there was really, I believe that they have done the best job of exhibiting exactly what SmartGlass can do. And again, it was very, very easy to write for. Most of this is actually available publicly on Channel 9. I know we have quite a bit there, but it was revealed in Build 2012. And again, this is a JavaScript API that exposes all the device capabilities of the current device you're using. So, for example, if I'm using a Windows Phone, Windows 8, iPhone, or Android, I can use the accelerometer, gyroscope, haptic. That is all available to me through a very, very simple JavaScript API. So you're not having to do any of that yourself. And it's platform agnostic. So I'd write a small function for the accelerometer, and it worked on every device. Didn't matter what the screen looked like, how big it was, tablet or phone. I think I would love to see more developers take advantage of this, in particular with games.
Yeah, definitely. So it's more than just we're going to open up a frame and go to a website. I mean, it's a little kind of runtime for your application. It runs on Android, runs on Windows Phone, runs on iPad.
Yeah, that's right.
And abstracts all that stuff away.
Mm-hmm. And the example I like to give, and I'm waiting for someone to bank on this large idea, I would do it myself if I had the time, is I picture a time when I'm playing Dungeons and Dragons with friends, and I'm the dungeon master with my SmartGlass device, and all my other friends are playing with the gamepads on the console. So this way I can spawn creatures or set up new quests or, throw roadblocks in their way from my screen without them ever having to see anything.
See, that's cool. That's cool.
Yeah, so I'm still waiting for someone to come by and really create that experience for us.
I thought it would be neat to have a kind of a squad-based game like a Call of Duty or something where you'd have the pad would be like as if you were in the game, as if you're really there. You pull the thing out and then you like draw a line.
Right, like where to go.
Like you guys go over here and I'll meet you there. So you'd like, it's kind of like, like Madden NFL, right? The way he used to draw on the screen, go here, button left, and I'll meet you behind the warehouse. Yeah,
and I think Battlefield 4 has that, called Commander or something, or Commander app. It's similar, but I haven't really dove that far into that. I don't know if it's available on SmartGlass, though.
I definitely cannot stress enough that if anyone has an Xbox, whether it be a 360 or a One, to get the SmartGlass on whatever device you have. Even, literally last night, we were playing music, we were having dinner, and the kids were unable to concentrate with the music going, so I was able to pause it from the phone. I could see what song was playing, change tracks, pause the music. So whatever experience you're having, whether it be a Comcast or whether it be Netflix or whether it be Battlefield, you're going to get a different experience on the phone, and it all happens automatically, and it's all contextual. It works really, really great.
Right. And even if there wasn't an app written for a specific title, the Microsoft generic SmartGlass app is available by default. So you have all the buttons available to you that you would normally have on a gamepad. That's up, down, left, right, fast forward, rewind. And like I said, information about what's currently being played on screen. So they couldn't have made it any easier for people.
And on your site, you talk a little bit about this, and it seems like if you haven't got that set up, you can still simulate a SmartGlass with just two devices and a website, and then you use like WebSockets to talk between them?
Yes, exactly. So that's how I got my start, before I received my dev kit, was I had two Windows 8 devices. One was Pro, the other one was an RT tablet. And using WebSockets, which is basically just opening a connection between two devices over your local Wi-Fi. One says, hey, I'm open for a connection. The other one says, hey, I'm going to send out a message. And all you do is pass a JSON object back and forth and a little if statement or a switch statement to discern what's going on. So I'll give you a rough example. I had a controller, and I would click on an image on my mobile device, and that image would then tell my Windows 8 tablet or my Windows 8 machine to point to this URL and play the movie. So it was as simple as that, and then I brought that concept right over to SmartGlass in a couple of days.
And are you talking on the same network?
Yes.
Like you have, so the WebSockets works because you're on the same Wi-Fi. You're basically talking back and forth between the phone and the tablet and the Xbox. You're not going out onto the internet and then back in.
That's correct. SmartGlass handles it a number of different ways. That's one of the ways. You can go up to the cloud, come back down, and then once that connection is established, it then just uses your local Wi-Fi. But even if that wasn't available and you just had a 3G device without Wi-Fi for whatever reason, that works too. But WebSockets, again, simplifies all of that and handles it one way.
That's cool. I was wondering why, because it's almost impossibly fast once you get it working.
We have no delay at all.
Yeah, exactly. And I have if I'm using it as a controller and I'm like swiping on my phone in order to move the tile around, it's instantaneous. And I was like, this has to be local. It has to be talking local.
Yeah, because you know what it is? The second someone notices a bit of delay, you've really taken them out of that experience and ruined it for them. So at that point, they wouldn't even want to use something like that. So that's why I often suggest to people wanting to make games or apps for, the new console generation. I suggest starting with Windows 8, getting that proven concept done, and then you're really grabbing Microsoft's attention because you're showing and illustrating very new ways of using their technology.
Yeah, definitely. So are you still doing the Indie Dev podcast?
Yes, I do that once every 2 weeks, and I interview independent developers for 30 minutes to get a bit of background information about them. So we start with how they got their start with development and finally leading up to the current projects that they're working on now.
Okay, cool. Well, I would definitely encourage people. I'll put the details in the show notes to check out Dave's site. He's got information on how to get your app on an Xbox One, details on SmartGlass like we just talked about. And then, of course, you can check out his new show, the Indie Dev Podcast. Thanks so much for chatting with me today, Dave.
Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure.
This has been another episode of Hansel Minutes, and we'll see you again next week.